Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to begin the meeting today by standing for a moment of silence, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have roll call, please.
Steve Hamill. Ken Snyder. Here. Brad Hent. Here. Wayne Barahona.
Here.
Tom Akers.
Here.
All right, next item up is the approval of the agenda. I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Kent.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Barahona.
Aye.
Akers.
Aye.
All right, moving on to the public forum portion of our meeting. Is there anyone here that would like to address the council at this time for any items on or off the agenda? Okay, if you would come forward to the mic and state your name. Welcome, Daryl.
Really doesn't concern the city in the way it does. My understanding was that everybody who lives in Sheldon had to put sidewalks in. Now, I didn't realize the school was quite that old, and I talked to Corey when he come to town at first, but that didn't phrase that. Did you ask me if I could have my picture taken? Okay. But anyway, how come the school has never had to put a sidewalk in on 6th Street? When we got 3/4 of a mile of school.
We can look into that and get back to you. It's not a, we just use this time is for you to address the council, but it's not a back and forth discussion at this point, so.
Okay, so when do I get to talk to Corey?
You can call him whenever office hours, whatever the office hours.
That, but I never get a reply.
Okay.
I noticed that in the paper.
I can't
right
speak
out.
for Corey, but I can
Talk to
speak
him,
for the
reach out,
council.
but I don't get a call back.
So,
But it doesn't that have to concern the city too, the street, the sidewalk?
I'm sure there are, this has been a long time ago, that the sidewalk requirement was there.
Yeah.
And there may be, and I can't, that was before my time even in the council, so this will give us time to look into it. We can give you an answer.
Very good.
All right. Are you from town, Daryl?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. Okay. Very good. Anyone else wishing to address council at this time? All right, then we can move on then to approve of the consent agenda. Take a motion.
Support.
A roll call, please.
Akers.
Aye.
Barahona.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Okay. The next item up under new business is the public hearing and the first reading of the adoption of the proposed code of ordinances of the city of Sheldon. So I'd like to open the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the council regarding the code of ordinances, the updated code of ordinances? Have we had any written comments?
None.
Okay. Then I would take a motion, seeing no action, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Support.
Roll call, please.
Akers.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Barahona.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
We're going to move into the first reading. Any comments you have for us at this time, Sam?
I do not, other than I would just say that it's been on the agenda quite a few times. It's up to you whether you would like to do first reading today and waive second and third, or just first reading. It's up to you.
Okay.
My comments to that is I think since it's a whole city ordinance, the whole thing is getting revamped, I think we need to do the due diligence and go through all 3 readings and give the citizens ample time to look through this. This is a major change. We've never had a change like this since they were written way back when.
Okay, is that, you want to make that in the form of a motion?
So I'll make that a motion, yes.
Do we have support for that?
Support.
Any further comments or discussion? Roll call, please.
Farahona?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Eggers?
Aye.
Snyder?
Aye.
So then we would move the second reading to our next meeting.
Second reading will be the 20th, and third reading would be October 4.
Okay. Very good. All right, then we can move on to the report section. Brad, you're up for an update on Sheldon Fire Company.
I'll move out here and address you like everyone else will. Well, it's nice to have the fire department be able to come to the council and give a little bit of an update of where we've been over the last several years. Last year we had 147 calls. This year we're at 76 calls. Last 10 years calls have been 118 calls per year. This year we've had like 19 fires already, both city and rural. 14 fire alarms, just a few things. Some of the things that we've upgraded over the last year, some of the equipment. We got a grant for grain rescue equipment from the O'Brien County Foundation. We were able to buy a grain rescue tube, an auger, drills to go with it for grain rescue. I think that was somewhere, by the time we're all said and done, close to $10,000 in equipment. Now we'll be able to be matched up with the neighboring communities. We all have the same grain rescue tubes, so if we ever have that. So again, we thank the O'Brien County Foundation for that. Another grant we got last year for some rope rescue equipment. We bought some rope and different things for rope rescue stuff. We had a couple small contributions from Farmers Mutual Insurance and then also Poet up in Ashton to buy that stuff. The other thing we bought last year with our annual fundraising money, we bought thermal imaging cameras. We looked around and we were going to buy 2 and we ended up buying 3. That was a little over $10,000. Looked at different brands and those things have come down in price, which we were fortunate and we were able to get 3 of them. So we have all the 3 the same on the 3 first responding trucks. With that, also here in the last week, we were awarded from the Iowa State Fire Marshal's Office. They had a grant out there through the fireworks funding in that for a wash machine, clothes extractor, to wash our fire gear. About another $10,000 grant that we got. That was in our budget for this year to buy a extracting wash machine. The only thing we have to pay for is the labor to install it. That just came to us here, like I said, last week we got notification of that. Some of our future goals we have, it's been in the capital improvement budget last number of years. Right now we're working on upgrading chainsaws. It seems like whenever we try to start a chainsaw we have problems, so we're going to electronic ignition. They seem to be working better. So we've got those in our budget over the next 2 years. We continually replace fire gear, pagers, radios, equipment like that. Some of the future things we're looking at, we're trying to look at buying a trailer to pull with one of our trucks, but that we can keep our hazmat for fuel spill, all that supply is in that, and our grain rescue tube, confined space equipment. Otherwise, we have to send now somebody out to the training center to pick up all that equipment with a pickup and bring it back if we need it. So we're looking at possibly buying a trailer of some type. In a budget 26-27, we have a tanker replacement. 26-27, we also have an air compressor that we have to buy that fills our breathing tanks. So that one's coming up. Then in 28-27, we have a big expense. It's going to be replacing all of our SCBA's. 15-year life, you have to replace them. So that one coming in 27-28 is going to be one that we have to do no matter what. We've also began some initial conversations with the other emergency services about space between the fire station, the ambulance, the police department, EMA. So we're early in those stages about what our future space needs are. We continue to use our training center. The wastewater plant has turned out to be very good. We can do confined space in there with the tunnel in the building. It's got a hatch on the outside. We have a live car fire prop, dumpster fire prop. We have roof props to where we can set up and ventilate roofs, but only a foot off the ground instead of the height of a building. So we continue to use the training center. We've used it lately for a lot of ladder training, rappelling from heights and that. A little bit about membership. Right now we're at 25 members with the 2 new ones we just voted on tonight. We have 7 of those 25 are firefighter 1s. 8 of them are firefighter 2. We have 15 people that are in hazmat operations, 2 hazmat awareness. We have 6 people that are certified driver operators, and then also 6 people in instructor certification. Some of the training it takes, people think you can just get on the fire department and yeah, you're on and you just fight fires. Well, to be a firefighter 1, it's 160 hours. That's above and beyond our regular meetings that we have. And then if you want to do the firefighter 2, that's another 100 hours. Driver operators, 50 hours. Instructor is another 40 hours. That's above and beyond our regular meeting night.
So Brad, is that training, is that structured training, or is that just experience with
No,
events?
that's structured. Firefighter 1, firefighter 2 is a state and nationally registered, test out on them.
But the hours we're talking about, what are the hours, the cumulative hours? You said it goes beyond the meetings.
We have 2 meetings a month.
Yeah.
So we've had 16 regular meetings this year. We've had, if I look on my sheet, we've had 16 other training events on top of our, we have had 17 other training events, like burning the village's house down. We've done
Sure.
a couple auto extrication nights. We've done grain rescue too, our grain rescue class. We've done what's some of the other ones? There's been some other ones, I can't think of them right off the top.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to give a flavor of what you guys go through to get to those different accreditations.
Yep, so those are above and beyond what we do in-house.
Right.
Those are taken usually during the winter. I know they have a couple of firefighter 2 starting this fall. Then the other thing we're trying, again, we're like any other department, church, any other civic organization, you're always in need of volunteers. And on October 18th, we're going to do a night where if you're interested in the fire department, come down to the fire station, look around. We're going to have a little session where it talks about what it is to be on the fire department. Got questions, and just stop by and take a look on October 18th. And then our annual fundraiser we do every year is our open house during fire prevention. We're going to do that October 12th, the week before. We'll have from 5 to 7, we're going to have the O'Brien County Cattlemen's Club there, grilling burgers again, and we'll have the trucks out, and we'll have an open house at the fire station. So that's coming up. And then, I just want to thank the members of the department. It takes a lot. Also thank their families for time they allow their significant others to take part in the fire department. So, and again, we thank the council and the city for their continued support of our fire department, and it's greatly appreciated. Any questions?
I only have one more question, Brad, and that was, we upgraded our insurance policies when we got the new ladder truck. Has the rest of our equipment been upgraded for replacement costs?
Yes, we've
Okay.
gone through that, especially the trucks have been upgraded to replacement value. And so we've done that. We've looked at that and done the due diligence on that.
Great.
So,
Thanks.
You mentioned you're at 25 members currently. Are you happy with that number, or are you still considered short?
You can always use more. You know, sometimes during the day and weekends are a little tight, but we still manage to get the job done. So, yeah, I mean, it's functional. We could use there are 6, 8 more guys, gals. More the merrier, as we say, because it's a physically demanding job, so.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the report, Brad.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Corey Myers with us, Superintendent of Sheldon Community Schools.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, I won't take a whole lot of your time. I'll kind of share a little bit about where we're at with the proposed project, and then really just open it up to you guys for questions. A big part of me coming in tonight is really just to make you aware of where we're at in the process. Obviously, a school addition and renovation is a significant project for our community, and so it's something that as a council, I just want to make sure that you're all aware of and answer any questions that you might have as we go through and talk about this process. So, newspaper has done a pretty good job of covering this over the past almost 2 years now that we've been talking about some of the concerns at the school. So hopefully you've been able to keep up to date on some of that in the newspaper. But a few issues that we're having at school is just, one of them is infrastructure, plumbing, electrical, heating, some of those things that we're struggling a little bit with. That the building is a really good building. Most people come in and they come into the commons, they come into the auditorium, they come into the gymnasium at the high school we're talking about, and those spaces are beautiful. They're in really good condition, they look really nice, and that's what the majority of the public sees. Probably 90% of our community comes in, those are the spaces that they go into. It's when you go down some of the hallways, you go into the bathrooms, you go into the locker rooms, you go into classrooms, that's where we really start to see some of the issues that we're having. And then a lot of those issues fall kind of with the infrastructure, meaning they're going to happen below the floor, above the ceiling, in the walls, a lot of those things. Just to repair all of those systems, to take out those systems, is about $17 million to replace the HVAC systems, the plumbing systems, the electrical, to replace all of that. So that number was, honestly, it was staggering to me when I first heard that. It was significantly higher than what I thought it was going to be, probably about 3 times higher than what I anticipated it to be, quite honestly. So when that happened, we started having bigger conversations then about, well, we're also having space issues at the same time where we're seeing some increasing in enrollment. The other thing that has really changed over time is just education looks different. If we think back when that building was built, over 50 years ago, 54 years ago now, when I talked to some of those people that were early graduates and they talked about, well, we had big classes then. Well, that building was built for, there were big classes. It was built for grades 10 through 12, though. It was built for 3 grade levels that were in there at a time. And I asked the question, how many non-English speaking kids did you have at that time? And the answer was 0, where now we have 25% of our students are Hispanic, about 8% of them when they show up are non-English speaking. So we obviously need some EL courses, we need some teachers for that. Special education, over the years was 1 to 2 classrooms. Our special education needs have changed a lot. We now have 5 special education teachers at the high school, sharing 3 classrooms. So just as space changes, in the last 10 years alone, the Sheldon Community School District has added 20 teachers in the past 10 years. So we've increased significantly in size. All of those teachers need space. Now, all 20 of those were not at the high school, just for clarification there. That's across the whole school district. So we started having those conversations about what do we do? How do we make sure that we've got a building that's good for the next 50 years? And building new was out of the question, just cost-wise, beyond what we could do. So we really started looking at how do we renovate existing space and what could we add on to make that happen. Part of the addition was to help with space. The other part of it is just when we do this renovation project, we're going to need somewhere to kind of house those kids while that's going on. One of the other big issues we're having is ADA compliance and handicap accessibility. We currently have spaces of the building that are not accessible by all students. And so our band and choir rooms are sunk down in. You have to go down the stairs. There's no elevator. Not a good way to get in there. A significant portion of the library is sunk down in. So that one is deemed as handicap accessible because you can sit around the outside, but not really fair for a kid that needs access to have to sit away from where all the other students are and be separated from everybody else. Bathrooms, all the doorways in the building are all an inch too narrow for current ADA compliance. So we need to widen those out, which doesn't seem like a big deal until you think about steel frame doors with block walls, and making those adjustments is significant. So all of those things kind of evolved into bringing us to where we're at today, which is talking about how do we create a learning environment that is going to facilitate the quality of learning that we want, that's going to allow us to provide that high quality education, that's going to allow us to attract and retain high quality teachers. And so the information that I put in front of you, the first sheet there, just a flyer that the kids committee worked on, which is just some community members who got together and are essentially helping to kind of promote the project. So there's some information there talking about the middle school being paid off, East Elementary being a couple years away from being paid off. Show some enrollment statistics there, some of the ADA compliance. If you look on the back side, you can see a map of what's being proposed, the plan there. And so the kind of dashed red line in that plan is the current existing building. And so outside of that existing building would be where the additional spaces would be added. We'd be adding 8 classrooms, a couple of science labs. Included in that space would be a new band and choir room, which would all be handicap accessible. We'd be adding in the current industrial tech space. Used to be about twice the size it is now. It got shrunk down over the years and they put a weight room in there. We'd like to pull that back out, expand that industrial technology space, which would allow us to do more hands-on learning, which we know is really important for kids today. Right now we have a woodworking shop. We don't have anywhere for metals, for manufacturing, which we know in our community, manufacturing is a really big part of what we do, and so we'd like to be able to expand and be able to promote those opportunities as well. And so that's a little bit about what the proposal would be. It breaks down the cost a little bit there. The total cost of the project is, we put on there $33 million. It's $32.9 million is what the estimated cost would be to do the project. We've kind of worked those numbers around. We initially were looking at a bond of about $21 million. Now we're down to about $19 million that we would be doing in a GEO bond. The GEO bond is going to be the property tax portion. That's the portion that property taxpayers are going to pay. Then SAVE funds would pay for about the other $14 million of that project. And so that'd be the statewide sales tax, the 1 cent penny that schools get. So that gives you a little bit of the financial information about what it looks like, a little bit about what the project looks like. Some of the other literature there, one was just kind of why we would consider the project. On the back side of that one, the other one there was just kind of what's included, which talks a little bit about some of the spaces that would be in there. And then that final document is just kind of a tax breakdown to give you an idea of what the tax impact would be. So at that $19 million that we would look to bond with the GEO bond, that would impact the tax rate at $2.47 per thousand. So we'd be looking at a $2.47 per thousand valuation increase there. That sheet though shows you with the rollback, which obviously goes into play, what the tax impact would be for a variety of, for your residential, commercial, agricultural, and you can just kind of use the numbers there to adjust to fit your own. We are just finishing up on a website. We'll roll that out the end of this week. That will have, essentially you just go to the school website, then you click on a link that'll take you to a different website. On there, there'll be a tax calculator, and so you'll be able to plug in your exact information and know the impact that it'll be for you specifically financially. So you can put in the assessed value of your home, and it's going to tell you then what it's going to be. You can put in how many acres of farm ground you own, it's going to tell you what that's going to be. So that'll be, like I said, rolled out later this week. We'll have that information available. So little bit of an overview there of kind of where we're at with things. We're currently, the Kids Committee is working on getting signatures. We need 134 signatures to put it on the ballot in November. I don't anticipate that being a problem, so I think that'll be pretty easily attainable for the group. Like I said, they're working on getting those signatures. The feedback I've heard from the Kids Committee has been very positive. The conversations they've had with community members has been, they're telling me a lot of support, a lot of positive comments. Obviously, the tax implications are a concern for everyone, and that's certainly a concern for myself as well. But once again, kind of the feedback we've been hearing from a lot of people is just, we know what needs done. It's time to make that adjustment, and how do we make sure that the school is ready for future generations? So that's where we're at. So with that, I give you a quick overview there. What questions do you have for me? Anything you're wanting to know that you're hearing in the community that you want to have awareness for yourself for some talking points?
I think one of the facts on this sheet that you handed out, I think that should be highlighted here too, is if you could just address the tax rate history, that word gets out. I mean, the fact that it's decreased over the last 13 years. I think you mentioned something the other day when we were in a meeting, how that's going to impact and go up, and then it'll start to tail off again.
Yeah, so we're at $12 per thousand now. In that bottom left-hand corner, you can see there that, you know, we were over $14. This will put it up to $14.47. Valuations will, of course, go up over time, and that'll have some impact, and then we'll pay off the other building, the elementary building we paid off in 2026. So looking at the numbers, that $2.47 per thousand, I anticipate within 5 years that being below $2 of a tax impact. So the $2.47 will be that initial tax rate increase, and then that will go down every year.
Thank you.
And I have another sheet that kind of projects that out into the future as well. And the hope would be that we'll reduce that tax every year, and we'll be able to pay off the debt early, and that quite often happens when schools do bonds.
Trying to do the math in my head, will East then be paid off before the increased assessments from the GO bonds go into effect? Potentially?
It'll be right about the
It'll be
same
just
time.
like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because, yeah, that's good.
Anyone else have questions for Corey?
I have a quick question. So what is the threshold to go to a public vote? When we do a street project, you know, there's quite a limit before you need to go to a public vote for essential corporate purpose. So what is your threshold for a school building?
For a dollar amount threshold? Or what do you-
Yeah, I mean, it's like ADA improvements and security improvements, would those be considered? I'm kind of catching you off guard with this, I guess, but is there a threshold that you can go up to where you don't have to go to a public vote? Or is it
If we're going to
required?
do a GO bond, if we're going to borrow, it has to go to a
Any
public
GO
vote.
bond?
For any GO bond,
Okay.
it's going to have to go to a public vote. We could use SAVE and PEPAL funds or some other revenue streams that we would have come in, and we wouldn't have to do a public vote on those, but anytime we do a GO bond, we're going to have to do a vote on those. And really, we do have additional funds that come in the form of PEPAL and SAVE, and obviously the city knows it's similar about other funding streams that way. The challenge that we're at right now is when those revenue streams come in, we get that money, and we can continue to do some of the fixes, some of the repairs like we're doing now. The problem is you can't do that big project with those coming in, so we end up putting Band-Aids on a whole lot of little things that happen, and then we're going to be in a situation where a few years down the road, we've spent significant amounts of money, and we still have the same building that hasn't been renovated, that hasn't been updated. Just a kind of a bizarre thing with the heat we've had recently, just in the last 10 days here. That first week of school, we had a 3-day school week, and it was warm. We actually had, so we have 13 rooftop air conditioning units on top of the high school. 3 of them went out that week when it was really warm. One of them we were able to get repaired right away. The other one, we had some minor repair work, and it was good to go. One of them, a compressor went out, and when the compressor compressor went out, it leaked into the other parts of the system. And so we had the company come in to look at it for repairs, and they said $3,000 for repairs for the part, $17,000 in labor to clean it all out. So it's going to be a $20,000 repair on a unit that's already almost 25 years old, that the life expectancy on it is 15 to 20 years. So you could spend $20,000 to repair an AC unit that's really end of life already, or you could just replace it for $85,000. So, and the problem is that's just one of 13 rooftop units. And then the problem that it gets a lot more difficult than that, because all of the ductwork that's in that building is all foam board ductwork, which happens a lot in commercial projects. It's not steel like what you often would have, or metal you would have in your house. And they said the problem is we put it in a new unit, it's going to increase the amount of airflow, and it's most likely going to blow out a lot of that ductwork, which is going to happen. It's going to cause other problems or issues. So they've told us that really needs repaired, which is kind of above ceiling work that we're going to have to do. When they did the high school project 25 years ago, when they put in a new HVAC system, that's when they redid all of the ceilings at that time. So they took out all the ceilings. It was I wasn't around obviously at that point in time, but from what I've been told, a big project. And so that's kind of what we'd be looking at again, would have to be a big project like that. The difference being all of our control units are bad at the same time, which your house has a thermostat. When you adjust that thermostat, that adjusts your air conditioning, that adjusts your furnace. In schools, because of the size of the system, it goes to a control that's in the ceiling. The control then tells you how to work. Those controls are obsolete, and so we have to replace those. So we can't even put new thermostats on the wall. So once again, just Friday of last week, the heating and cooling company came in and said, you need $30,000 to repair some of the controls, because without that, they're just shut off and the heat won't work this winter. So we need $30,000 in repairs just simply to get the heat to work. All of those things are just Band-Aids. We're fixing things as we go, and it's not fixing the system at all. And so you just kind of get to that point when I talk to them, the HVAC company, where they've said to me, we're glad to come do these repairs. We're collecting a paycheck every time we walk in the door. But they told me 2 years ago, where you just gotta replace the system, or it's going to nickel and dime you for years. So that's a little bit where we're at. Unfortunately, all of that stuff, fixing it, is not fun. I mean, there's no glamour in that. When you fix an HVAC system, you replace plumbing, electrical, nobody's going to feel really good about the millions of dollars that we're going to spend to repair it. Hopefully some of the other parts of the project, the addition, some of the renovation, we'll make some cosmetic improvements. Some of those things will be beneficial, we'll feel good about. I've had a number of parents talk to me about the security and safety concerns at the high school. They're excited about those upgrades. We would move an office onto the east side of the building, which is kind of in the plans there. Right now, when people come in on the east side of the building, which is where the vast majority of our community comes in, or our students come in, because that's where the big parking lot is, once you come in those doors, you don't see anybody. We don't know where those people go once they walk in the door. It's quite a distance from that east entrance all the way to the office. So I'd like to change something from a security standpoint there as well. So just a lot of different things we'd be able to address with this, and really be able to create a school building that should be good for the next 50 or 60 years.
So how will that affect back this up so I understand. Your PEPAL funds, that's a separate levy. So how will that be affected? Will you just be kind of banking that money? The idea being that you invest all of this money in the new stuff. Hopefully the new stuff doesn't break. What does that look like?
Yeah, so we'll still receive PEPAL funds, and we'll still receive a little bit of SAVE as well. We'll spend about 75% of our SAVE funds when we get allocated towards this project. So we have about 25% of those, and PEPAL that would go for continuing ongoing upgrades. One of the big things we've been talking about that I think Justin mentioned in the paper would be like the parking lot. Outside the school, outside the pool there, that parking lot is in really rough shape. We had a construction management company look at it, and they said $1.5 to $1.8 million to replace that. I'm trying to convince Todd to do it for us. I haven't been able to make that happen yet. But lighting, which once again, we don't want to see, more money into lighting out there in the ball fields, but really a scary thing that one of the lights at the football field fell down and knocked the light pole. Make Justin's head turn there when I did that. The light fixture fall down, and it was to nobody's fault or anything. It's just the wind up there really wears on those lighting units, and the bolts just went bad, and so one of them fell. We had the company go up and look at it, and they said, yeah, they're all kind of just getting to that point. We need to do some type of replacement. Luckily, there was no activity. There was nothing going on there when the light fell. If there was something going on, it would be really bad. Those light fixtures, they're a lot larger than what most people anticipate that they would be. They're heavy. You couldn't pick it up by yourself. There's a lot of weight there. It would be really a scary thing. Replacing the lights at the ball fields, right at $1 million was the estimate of us of lighting here. So there's a lot of other expenses. We've got a chiller at the middle school. The middle school is 20 years old now, and so the chiller, which runs the air conditioning unit, that's about a $400,000 unit. And every year we're kind of putting some Band-Aids in there and keeping it going, but at any point in time it can be done. So even though we do this big project at the high school, that's really going to help with all of our high school needs, we'll still have regular ongoing maintenance needs. You're just thinking of the magnitude of the buildings that we have. They're all large in size, and they get a lot of wear and tear, a lot of usage. So,
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, just if you don't mind. Corey, you and I served together on SCDC. You know that one of the goals for the community is to build housing so that we can establish more residential growth here in Sheldon. And as early as a week or two ago, we talked about how we're going to be able to add 60 housing units within the next 12 to 18 months here in town. And so the last census, we gained population, and it looks like we're on that path with everything else that we're doing as a city and community to probably get another 10% in the next census, which is 10 years down the road. So what I want to talk about is the increased capacity aspect of this. With that, just rough numbers, that'd be 520 additional citizens, assuming that's four-person family. We're talking 130 families, 260 kids if they have two per, and if you divide that by 12, you got an extra 20-some kids per classroom within the next 10 years. So with the growth that you're showing here and you'll be proposing for this bond, how can you put those types of figures that we feel are real, that we're making great efforts and expenditures to obtain as a community? How will this new project facilitate that and still have room for the other 40 years you're talking about? So.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the design for all three buildings, not the preschool, that was a separate piece. Obviously, that one we didn't build new. That was one that we kind of took and remodeled. There's room for growth in that building as well. But with the elementary, middle school, and high school, they're all set up where additional space could be added onto them into the future if needed. The high school with this plan would be able to accommodate future growth because we are planning on future growth. The elementary class sizes have increased, so we're anticipating some of those classes coming up into high schools where we'll be able to accommodate that. So this should give us the room. We did leave space in there. If you look at kind of that plan, looking where kind of the yellow spaces are on the left-hand side of that plan, those are some flex spaces, which flex space for people that haven't been in school recently, that might not make a lot of sense. But if you think of it, if you've been in the middle school, and we have pods, we call them in the middle school, it's just a collaboration space. It's some open space where kids can go out and work in small groups. A lot of what we're doing now in education is built on collaboration and working together, problem solving. It's nice to be able to put kids in different spaces. So that flex space would kind of accommodate that, but it would also be real easy in those areas to build that into hall classrooms. I would not anticipate the need for additional classrooms at the high school, probably for 20 to 30 years would be my estimate based on the numbers that you're talking about for potential growth. The elementary and middle school could see the need for something a little bit sooner there. The benefit being if we start increasing students like you're talking about, that also increases revenue and gives us additional funding and kind of goes back to what Wayne was talking about as well. Your PEPAL dollars are going to increase. SAVE is based on a per pupil basis, and so that number would increase as well. So we'd have additional revenue to build for future growth, which there's no guarantee that's going to happen, but there's certainly a lot of indicators that can happen in our future.
I appreciate that, because I think that's one way I can relate to the citizens if they do come to me and ask about this. I can sit there and say, well, growth is always, and we're doing, like I said, we're doing things on the city side for that growth, so we need to support it in our school district as well.
And you have to plan for that into the future, because when that growth happens, this is going to be a 3-year project. We have to plan into the future because you can't just build overnight. You've got to be prepared for that growth to happen. So this is going to be a 3-year process. If it doesn't pass, the rules have changed on that. You can only have an election now once a year, and so it would be a full year before we could take this to vote again if it didn't pass. The estimated cost on that, I've got a construction manager working on that. It's roughly a $2 million increase in project cost is what they told me would be if we have to wait a year for that to happen. So the cost will go up, and then when the costs go up, you're having to look at where you're going to reduce the projects and shrink things down. And where we're at right now, there's not fluff in there. There's not a lot of extra. It really is bare bones. The project was a lot larger when we started, and we made a lot of cuts, a lot of reductions out of there. Right at the very end, we had about 15,000 square feet, so it's quite a bit smaller than what the original was.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks,
If
Corey.
you have questions, feel free to reach out. Glad to discuss with you.
Appreciate the information. All right, we move then into our city manager report. Is there anything you want to add today?
Yes, there is. Thank you, Mayor. So my regular report speaks for itself. I'd like to move in. Is there any questions on that? If not, I'd like to move into the urban renewal update. So if you could pull up that memo. So there's a brief explanation there on how urban renewal areas and plans and TIF works. In terms of updating the area, I'd like to propose that we add in this block. There are a number of benefits to doing that. We're allowed to use urban renewal funds or TIF funds for libraries, and there's also circumstances where we can use it for potentially for City Hall and for emergency services. Then also by the theater and NCC in the old water tower site, and then east of City Park, which includes a nuisance property that we've been working through, and East Lawn Cemetery. If you add all these parcels up, we're really not impacting, most of these are not areas that are generating a lot of increment, so to speak, so it wouldn't have much impact on, let's say, the school district and the county, but it would allow us to take existing TIF funds and be able to spend it in those areas. We also have a number of updates to the plan. When I use the term reset, there's typically 5-year limits on these items in the previous plans, so we would hit the reset button on those to be able to continue to do that. One of the larger expenses would be the airport, which has runway expenses coming up, and so that I have linked that for you to look at. Let's talk about SCDC for a moment. Currently, the city contributes $55,000 for the director based on the previous salary that was coming from general fund, trust, and agency, and another $45,000 in general operations for a total of $100,000. And then there was also $20,000 annually for storefront funding, which would stay separate as a separate program. But the proposal is to take that to an even $125,000 due to rising costs, and then what's been discussed is having right now the director is a city employee, the other two are not. All three would no longer be city employees. So there would still be a strong connection to the city. City ordinance currently still requires the confirmation of the director, but it would basically be a simple 1 or 2 sentence consent calendar item. Here's our director and new director and the bio, and you still have 2 council members on the SCDC board, so you still have that strong connection. We have a number of public works items that we would be looking at. It's a pretty good list. Then also a TIF release is something that we have been working on. We did do a significant release that took impact this year, and working with the county on another potential release. So, you know, there are a lot of costs represented in this document. Not seeking your approval today. I just thought it would be appropriate to come forward, and before I start working with Ehlers, Cooney, and city staff on dialing this down and bringing this back forward for a public hearing in the future, I wanted to give you an opportunity to provide feedback. Any comments?
So define reset. What does a reset mean?
Well, so Children's World, for example, you know, where we've been doing it for 3 years, you can do it for 5. So you hit the reset button, you can do it for another 5 years.
What is required for a reset?
Well, you have to have a paragraph in your urban renewal plan, and then you have to have a public hearing on your urban renewal plan. So we're essentially telling the community, you've been giving $25,000 or $30,000 to Children's World for the past several years. Here's how it's going. Are you okay with doing another 5 years? Subject, of course, to the budgeting process. Because, you know, just because it's in the plan, we have quite a few items that are in the plan that we don't ultimately do. But if it's not in the plan, you can't consider it with TIF.
Thank you.
Corey, you should be happy to know that the high school and swimming pool parking lot's in this, so. Weren't you just mentioning that? Yeah,
That's one of those items we're
yeah.
There have been rumblings about TIF being changed, shook up, whatever, at the state level. How does that impact those changes that they're talking about? Does that impact any of what you have here now?
It does. You know, we've been living with that potential concern for many years. It comes up every legislative session, and so, you know, and ultimately until there is a significant change, it's not something that we can dwell on. And with the changes that we've seen, with the changes that we have seen in the past few legislative sessions, especially this one, we must be able to leverage urban renewal dollars to achieve our goals. And if you see what we've done with the water tower, imagine the impact on rates if we had done the water tower through rates. We're having a conversation about potential new emergency services and fire station and changing things with this building. without the ability to use urban renewal dollars, you're looking at an additional, general obligation bond that would compete directly with the ability for the school district to do the bonding that they need to do. So it's an important tool for us to maintain, and that's a story that we need to continue to tell our legislators. Take them down Rainbow Drive in North Fifth and down by the post office and Oak and Pine, and show them what we have, the wise decisions that we have made with the use of TIF dollars, how we've been able to, because of the funding and TIF that we've been able to use in the urban renewal areas, the core of the community between here in Washington and south of Highway 18 and north of 11th Street that is not in the urban renewal area, that's freed up additional dollars where we can bring back chip seal, crack seal, and the mills and overlays that we hadn't been able to do as much of in the past. Any of you who had been up to Celebration Days over the weekend and had to previously walk over that cracked up asphalt by the shelter house have probably noticed how nice that is now. Those urban renewal dollars that did that. So,
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Sam, I see that we added possibly in there residential development incentives. Is there any more explanation of what that might look like?
Yeah, one example would be the, a little bit more of what we did downtown with like the HC lane, where we incentivized the turnover of that building. It could take various forms. Bethel, for example. But you have to be careful with removing farmland out of production. There are circumstances where you can do it for residential, but mainly you can use TIF for infrastructure incentives. So you could use it for, let's use Bethel as an example. You can use it to help tear down the building. You can use it for the legal costs associated with the plating and that type of thing. We have also used TIF for water and sewer service lines and street infrastructure improvements that benefit neighborhoods. We can use it in that way.
Okay.
It isn't refined, Tom.
Yeah, I didn't expect to have it completely.
It probably should be refined, but it's in there so that we like. Real quick here, if we use the example of HC Lane, we didn't know until it came up how it was ultimately going to play out, and then when Micah and I and Todd and Kurt discussed the idea of a $30,000 incentive to help get clear title, that's not something that we really even knew about when it was.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it has real application in Sheldon, and certainly fits the bill for urban renewal. I think we have fairly strong programs for commercial property and businesses and stuff of that nature. But large portion of this town is an older portion of the buildings in this town, and the valuation of those buildings have a tax implication to it, and so there's always some return back from that as well for any investment to renew some of the urban areas. We've been dealing with some, and there's certainly opportunity to look at that strategy further in my mind. So that's why I asked. Thanks.
Welcome. All right, any other questions? Is there anything else you have for us? Okay. Todd, anything from you today? Mark, anything from you?
Other than just thank you to those of you who helped volunteer during the weekend. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Angie? Micah?
No, sir.
Council to my left.
Great weekend we had. Enjoyed the work and SCDC and all the volunteers here. Continue that. We had quite a few volunteer.
Great.
I'll echo the same thing.
Okay. Anything else? Council to my right.
No, thank you.
I've used my time, thanks.
All right, very good. And I have nothing further at this time, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
Roll call.
Hand,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Hamel, I'm sorry, Mayor Hona,
Aye.
Eggers,